Hello, this is Karen Burniston here with an assembly video for one of our die sets. This is die number 1171, the Street Lantern Pop-Up, and you can check out all of our die designs at karenburniston.com. This set is both beautiful and versatile. You can assemble the pieces in different ways. You can use it flat, but then you can also make it into a pop-up. So the pole itself has a little bit of an emboss feature in some detail lines. If you just cut it, just run it through your die cutting machine with some cardstock and cut it, you're not going to get much of those lines. But if you either use an embossing sandwich or you add score tape to the back of your cardstock before die cutting, then you'll get a little bit of that embossed look to those lines. You can use any die cutting machine that can accommodate a wafer-thin die. The pieces in the Street Lantern Pop-Up are not very large, so they will fit in a small machine. And today I'm using my Dress My Craft Easy Cuts machine. And since I have that score tape put on the back of the silver metallic cardstock before die cutting, then I basically get the emboss effect without having to run it back through with an embossing sandwich. So just to bring down a little bit of the shininess of that silver as well as add some texture, I've got my pole and my lantern placed temporarily on my nonstick craft sheet, and then I'm going to do a pouncing technique with some Stays-On black ink and just a coarse sponge. And I'm using Stays-On ink because that's a slick surface, so if I used just any other ink, it would probably just smear off. So it just brings down the shine a little bit and adds a little weathering to the pole and lantern. So if I were using that Street Lantern flat against a card, I would just take advantage of it being a sticker and put it right onto my project. But I want this one to be a pop-up, so I am going to attach it instead to the same pole that I cut out of the black cardstock. So that'll not only make it not a sticker anymore, but will make it more durable to act as a pop-up. So there is a decorative top to the pole so that you can use it just as a pole when you don't want it to be a lantern. But when you do want to add the lantern top, you just cut off the top of the pole and then replace it instead with the lantern. Because of the score tape, my silver lantern is a sticker, so I can just stick it to the top of the pole. And then to finish out the lantern, I need to look to a couple other pieces in the set. So there's a bell-shaped piece that backs the lantern. I love to cut that out of vellum. And then there is a die in the set that cuts the light for the lantern. It actually cuts 3 of them for when you're doing a triple lantern. And then I can just put the stem of that light bulb right into the sticky on the back of my lantern. So for this assembly, the light bulb is going to be in front of the vellum. But you could also explore putting the light bulb behind the vellum. So in that case, you would put the vellum piece on first and then put the light bulb. But for this one, I'm going to put the light bulb in front of the vellum. So the only thing that's not sticky is the light bulb itself, so I'm going to add a little bit of glue to that. And then I'm just going to place that bell-shaped vellum around the opening. And then since I still have some exposed sticky on the back of the lantern, I'll use that black one that I cut earlier and just press that to the back. And then just to make sure that it's good and adhered, I'll add just a little glue under the portion of the black lantern that touches the pole, since that doesn't have any sticky. Okay, so there is a very pretty single lantern. You can see that that really could be used year-round, but the die set does include some pieces for your holiday cards. So if you would like to deck out your street lantern for Christmas, there is a die in the set that cuts a decorative swag. And the swag is designed so that you can actually hook it into those little swirls out on the end of the pole, and then it'll span right across there. And you don't really technically need any adhesive at all, although you can always secure it with glue if you were worried about it. There is a die in the set that will cut 2 decorative bows, so I can add a bow in the center of the swag. Another decorative option is the wreath. So that could be used around the lantern, or it can be used around just the pole. And then again, that looks really great with that decorative bow. Okay, if you don't use the lantern, then the pole is about 3.5 inches tall. With the lantern, it's a little bit over 4. If you find that that is too tall for your project, you can always cut off the decorative bottom of the pole. I think it looks like a milk jug. And then just move it up the pole as far as you need to shorten. And here's an example of a shortened street lantern used with our gingerbread tiny house add-ons. There are a couple of bonus items you can make with these pieces. So one would be a wreath that you could make with the swag. And if you'd like to make bells, you can just use the piece that backs the lantern, but then also use a piece of the lantern itself to make the clapper for the bell. And then really experiment with ways that you can customize the street lantern. So maybe you're going to add 3 lanterns to the top. That's a great look to do a triple lantern, or cut off one of the swirls of the pole and use the other one to hang a lantern. And when you want to make a pop-up card, the die set does include a little pop-up platform. So let's look at that. There is an arrow opening on the die so that if you take a pen through that arrow opening after die cutting, then you'll have a little indication of which end gets glued into the card. There are 3 score lines in that piece. It'll be easy to see on the side that it's been die cut into. So I always like to fold towards myself and then immediately reverse them so that I have 3 mountain folds. With our pop-up dies, card size is always your choice. But for the street lantern, if you haven't shortened it, then with the pop-up, you need a card that has at least 5 inches in height. My card is 6 inches wide by 5 inches tall. And then I've just added some decorator pieces of paper that are a little bit smaller. It is the arrow side that glues down on that pop-up platform. So you don't have to worry about stenciling the arrow on because you're never going to see it. You're going to glue it down into the card so that the end is right up next to the fold of the card. And I used the lantern to decide how far in from the side it needed to be able to hide the lantern in the closed position. Okay, so folding it down to attach it to the other side, make sure that you're not folding in just the tapered tab. You need to fold against the second fold so that it's the tapered tab and the panel next to it that is visible, like this. And then it's only the tapered tab that gets the adhesive. And then you close the card against it. That pink snowflake paper is a really old piece from my stash, but it's also kind of shiny, so it took a second for the glue to set up. But there's my little simple box platform to be able to animate the street lantern. My favorite adhesive is LINECO Neutral pH adhesive in my fine tip bottle. We do sell both of those items on our website. So on the front of the platform gets the glue, then I put my street lantern face down in front of it, making sure that it's straight and it's within the limits of the card. Then I can close the card to pick up the street lantern. Okay, I decided to add another one on the other side. So once again, I've cut and stenciled my pop-up platform. I put the arrow side down so that it's butted up against the fold of the card. I fold over the bottom 2 sections, but it's only the tapered tab that gets the adhesive. I keep everything flat and I close the card against the exposed adhesive. Then, just like I did with the first one, I add glue to the front of the platform, lay the street lantern down in front of it, and then attach it to the front of the platform. Okay, a swag will actually fit right between those 2 lanterns rather nicely, so now I have the swag going all the way across. Okay, that makes a nifty pop-up on its own. You could be done, but then there's another option you have, which is to take more of the pop-up platforms and attach them to the front of the lantern so that you can make another forward layer to your pop-up. So let me show you how I did that. First things first, I'm switching to mini glue dots because a dry adhesive against that silver is going to work better. And then it's the arrow end that goes against the base of the street lantern. And then I just make sure that 2 panels are folded in, just like I did before. Then I close the card against that exposed glue dot. And then now I've made the pop-up platform again, but it's coming off of the front of the street lanterns. And that's a great technique if you want to add something like a tiny gnome or something just sitting forward from the street lantern. What I decided to do was cut a piece of cardstock and use our Nature Edges stitched hill to make it into a little snowy hill piece that I can attach to the front of those platforms. And then I'm going to add 2 of our tiny gnomes. I glued 1 gnome to the front of the hill, and then I'm going to add the girl gnome to the back of the hill, but bring her braids forward so they're in front. Okay, that wreath I showed earlier will work perfectly in that space on the bottom, and then I'm using our Merry Christmas script die as well as our new Merry Christmas shadow die in the background. For a simple card front, just the same pattern paper and those same nature edges to do the snow. And I've done the gold triple lantern with the wreath around it. And then since I'm using the tiny gnomes, I can actually use the snowflake that comes included with the tiny gnomes for a little extra decoration. My finished card measures 6 inches wide by 5 inches tall, so I'll be able to mail that in an A7 envelope. And you can see the versatility because the street lantern looks great as a flat item or as a pop-up. It does coordinate wonderfully with our garden bench pop-up, which is new in this release, that makes great holiday cards as well as great year-round cards. So you can definitely use the street lantern for all occasions. It really is a year-round die and just has such versatility in the different ways you can assemble it. I love to end assembly videos by looking at some cards by our very talented international design team. Frances Byrne made this card, which is a street lantern tiny gnome Christmas card. We do offer some lights on our website that work perfectly with the street lantern pop-up, as you see here in this card by Sandy Diller. This is such a sweet card by Fran Sabad, where she's got the street lantern inside and a couple bells she made for the front of the card, and then little carolers made with our tiny gnome set. And then Fran also made this lovely Christmas tag using the street lantern. The Street Lantern Pop-Up Die Set is available at a lot of your favorite local and online retailers, as well as on our website, KarenBurniston.com, available now. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBurniston.com, where you can find out information about purchasing these dies, as well as links to all my other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.